So I just want to make a video about how we're approaching the subject matter of this class, which is moral philosophy. What are we doing in this class? I don't think I've really told you that yet. Well, we're looking at moral philosophy or ethics, which is the same thing. There's no distinction. Moral philosophy, ethics are it's the same study. It's a study of how or the basis for making judgments of right and wrong in human behavior. That's moral philosophy. That's the subject matter of the course, looking into the issues, the questions, the problems that are concerned with that, determining right and wrong. I still have to put up readings, but it doesn't really matter. I can give you a sense of what we're doing, how we'll be approaching the class. We're in the middle of week one. Week one, ethical decision making frameworks. This is moral theory. Immanuel Kant's moral philosophy, the philosophy of utilitarianism, and the moral philosophy of Thomas Aquinas in their basics. We could do a whole course just looking at these three moral theories if we were to do them really rigorously. I didn't want to do the course that way. I wanted to introduce you to moral theory as quickly as I could. And so that's why we're looking at these things in terms of very quickly getting a sense of how would I make moral decisions? What principles basically would I apply to make the proper moral decision according to these different philosophers? According to Kant, you've already read it. It's at the application of the categorical imperatives. We'll see in utilitarianism that it's the application of what John Stuart Mill calls the greatest happiness principle, which is very different from Kant. As you'll see, Kant does not say, well, we have to look at the impacts of our actions on human beings in terms of their happiness or welfare. Kant thinks that the categorical imperatives just flow out of our general sense of duty to the moral law. So very different, Kant and utilitarianism. But that's utilitarianism is the second approach to moral theory or moral decision making that we'll be looking at. And the third comes from Thomas Aquinas, the natural law approach. The idea that it's a generally religious approach. The idea that God has created human beings with reason, and reason has allowed them to grasp certain basic first principles of morality. And that aided by certain other things, that they can proceed to make moral judgments on the basis of those God-given, the insight, the God-given insight to those principles. So these are three very quick introduction to moral theory or some basic ideas of how we actually go about making moral decisions. And then for the rest of the class, I've decided, we're going to look into specific issues, specific moral problems or specific issues. I haven't actually even chosen the last couple, but it doesn't matter. We'll proceed very easily. Next week, we'll be looking at two readings about abortion that generally give us two very different perspectives on it. First, and they're both classic essays. One is Defense of Abortion by Judith Jarvis Thompson, 1972. It's not loading. It doesn't matter. The second is there is essay by Don Marquis, I think around 1988, called Why Abortion is Immoral. So from the very titles, you can see that we're getting very opposite opinions about the morality of abortion. So we'll be looking at a specific issue of abortion next week. The week after that, we'll be looking at the issue of giving. And that really means charitable giving, our duties to people, other human beings who are in dire need, and whether we have a duty to help them, and if we have a duty, to what extent we need to help them. That'll be readings by Peter Singer, very famous ethicist, moral philosopher. Very famous essay he wrote in the 1970s called Famine, Affluence, and Morality, and then a criticism of that by John Arthur. Very, very interesting. So those are the two readings I'm not giving. The two essays after that we'll read in the fourth week of the course will be Thomas Nagel's War and Massacre and Michael Walzer's The Problem, Political Action, The Problem of Dirty Hands. The first one is obviously very much about war. The second one is in a more general topic that would include the ethics of war, violence, using violence. Very interesting essays, very topical, obviously. Always topical because there's always wars going on, whether we're involved with them or not. After that, I'm going to do a week on justice. We'll probably spend the whole week reading John Rawls's 1958 essay, Justice as Fairness. And I think that'll take us up to, I guess, week 6, which I haven't decided yet. But that's not important. I mean, the stuff will be up there when you need it. But this is how the course is structured: a 1 week kind of boot camp, quick introduction to moral theory or moral decision making or ethical decision making frameworks. And then we'll be looking at specific issues. And I think that your grounding, or at least your introduction to these 3 moral theories, will serve you well as you read these essays on more specific topics. So I sent out a video describing what the requirements for the course is, but this video is just really what the course is about. It is an introduction to moral philosophy, but it is set up for a summer course. That is, I didn't want to spend a huge amount of time going through the details of moral theory, reading Kant, John Stuart Mill, and Thomas Aquinas extensively. That's what I would do in a 15-week course. I wanted to make it more suitable for a condensed course or an accelerated course, which is what this is, 6 or 7 week course. So after our introduction to moral theory, ethical decision making, then we dive right into specific issues, and these are the readings get harder actually as we go on. These are readable, very readable essays, but you simply have to have time. And I just sent out, for instance, a commentary on the first discussion board. The first discussion board was fine, people's remarks, but what I wanted to make sure of is that everyone understood the question I was asking, which is basically, are Kant's categorical imperatives really categorical? And what that requires is that you know what he means by a categorical imperative, and I explain it not only in the essay I just sent out, but in the original essay for the reading. So the thing is, you have to do the readings if you want to do well in the course. There will be a final exam in which I will be asking you questions about these readings, and I will expect that everyone, for instance, knows what a categorical imperative is, but you can just explain it, and you can discuss the specific ones that Kant actually thinks are binding on us. When we look at, let's say, Thompson's essay on abortion, that you know her basic argument, the basics of her argument, and that goes for all the essays that we read. That is, that you grasp the basics of the argument that the writer, the philosopher, is actually propounding, so that if you're asked questions about it, you can comment on it. You have that at your command. So you simply have to really put the time in to understand these readings. Um, so yeah, you're going to have to give you're going to have to give the readings a good go and spend time with them. But as far as the subject matter, it's fascinating subject matter. If you're bored by this, that's your fault. I'm not saying I'm a great teacher, but the readings for this course are about things that are important to us all, and we all want to be more knowledgeable about the things that are important to us. So it's actually quite fascinating subject matter.